former General Arora, Admiral Anil Kumar Chawla, former FOC-in-C Southern Naval Command, General Samantara, General Ravi Arora, CEO and a distinguished fellow CENJOWS, CEO IMR, Colonel Kuber, General Sanjay Kulkarni, General Anjan Mukherjee, General Rameshwar Yadav, General Jauhar, AVM PK Srivastava, all the other esteemed panelists, distinguished and senior fellows of CENJOWS, participants from IMR, representatives from DRDO, the DPSUs, various industries and academia, all the officers joining us from CAT establishments, from the Army, Navy and the Air Force, ladies and gentlemen. So, hearty welcome to you, Jai Hind, and good morning. Thank you so much for joining the inaugural session today, and thus being a part of sharing the views of the experts at the strategic level. I will just take a moment and take this opportunity to put the discussions that we are going to have over the next 2 days into some context. Why are we talking about night vision and electro-optical devices? Any discussion on this issue, observation, brings to mind what Clausewitz remarked almost 2 centuries back in the context of the fog of war and uncertainty. What he said, and that remains true even today. He was so intuitive that the great part of information is contradictory. A still greater part is false, and the greatest part is doubtful. Technology has today given us a lot of battlefield transparency, and we are talking about multi-domain warfare, we're talking about network-centric warfare, various names. But at the heart of it all, information and cognitive domains are still center stage. So that is where the contest lies. And information superiority truly translates into combat superiority. So the start point for that is the famous OODA cycle or the OODA loop. And we are going to be largely focusing today on the first step of that is observation. And that is where whoever wins that battle, whether you are able to observe or whether you get deceived, you obscuration and all the other measures that the adversaries take. So that is where the contest lies. And we have been seeing it very closely, particularly after the first Gulf War. There are numerous examples. One can go on and on and on. With the Gulf War and most recently, all the examples that you can think of, whether it's Crimea, whether it's Syria, whether it's Ukraine, whether it's Israel, whether it's like Nagorno-Karabakh, closer home, whatever we see happening here, it's not just in the conventional domain that the electro-optical and night vision devices are being used to good effect. It is in the sub-conventional, and the terrorists, etc., have been using it. We have seen examples in Iraq and Afghanistan, and its advanced ones with laser rangefinders that they use. And closer home are Pakistan kitted and supported terrorists. They also come in with night vision devices. So the issue here is what we are seeing more and more are very fleeting engagements. And whoever is a contested and enabled warfighter, whether it's the air domain or the sea or the land forces, whoever is enabled and whoever is connected, he will win the battle. What we are looking at, a sharp observation capability, decision at the edge. That's where you have to enable the warfighter. So you have these optronic eyes, and to understand the situation better, have a shared situational understanding. What you want is a kind of a user-friendly, lightweight device, so that the soldier remains, the warfighter remains agile, and his cognitive as well as his load carrying capability is not, he's not encumbered with that. So that's where the challenge lies. We want something which is performance-wise very superior, but we have to handle the challenges of swap C, that is your size, weight, power and cost. So that's what we have to talk about today. What should be our design focus? You know, the design has to be the war fighter centric. But the warfighter himself has to be very clear-eyed about what his requirements should be. He would want fusion, he would want medium wave infrared, he would want short wave infrared, he would want a figure of merit more than 1800, he would want very wide field of view, he would want cooled thermal devices, he would want hyperspectral capabilities. But we have to be very clear that are we wanting it for everyone in all applications? Because the cost implications have to be thought of. And secondly, we must also be very clear about interoperability. Whenever we talk about night fighting devices or any equipment for that matter, we must make sure that what a pilot sees up in the air, it doesn't only go to the base. In real time, it must also go to the warfighter out there at sea or on land. Okay, so that's where GIS interoperability and many other issues take center stage. And of course, we have to keep Atmanirbharta in mind. That's the clarion call. And we are doing very well, not just BL and the other PSUs. We have numerous examples. We have Tata, Tonbo, HGH. We'll be hearing them today. We also have MKU. They're not only making for us, they're making for the world. So that's where they are. And we'll be hearing more about it when we talk about innovations, and we have platforms like IDEX, and the disk. Okay, so that's where the front end work is happening. A lot of promise has been shown by the MSMEs. So we are talking about collaborative R&D initiatives, and particularly where it concerns microtechnology, signal processing, advanced materials, rare earths, because that is what all this is required. Gallium arsenide and many other things that we will hear about today. We're going to be talking about semiconductors. Going to be talking about artificial intelligence to enable the warfighter. And this webinar puts together all these stakeholders today to get their viewpoints. And we have sessions tailored for all of these issues. And at the end of next 2 days deliberations, we hope to put together functional level and policy level thoughts so that we can get better and better. So I'll stop at that, and without much ado, I'll request uh, Admiral Anil Kumar Chawla a brief word of introduction. Of course, I've known him for long years, and we began our training together in Gorpadi way back in 1981. Uh, Admiral Chawla knows, he needs no introduction, very accomplished, highly decorated uh, naval officer. He was decorated with the Param Vishish Seva Medal, Ati Vishish Seva Medal, Nausena Medal, Vishish Seva Medal. And as I mentioned earlier, that he was the FOC-in-C Southern Naval Command before he just retired recently. And throughout his career, he has commanded a variety of ships and platforms. I would not detail all of them. He also commanded the aircraft carrier Virat. He is a navigation and a direction specialist. He has been an instructor at the National Defense Academy as also at the Defense Services Staff College. He has been a naval attaché at Jakarta, and here at the naval headquarters, he has held a variety of appointments, very responsible ones: ACNS Foreign Cooperation Intelligence, ACNS Policy and Plans, and he commanded the Western Naval Fleet as well. He was DG Naval Operations and also the Chief of Personnel at the naval headquarters. So we couldn't have asked for a better person to share his thoughts as part of the inaugural address. Over to you, Admiral Chawla.
Thank you very much, General Srivastava. Thank you very much for the very gracious introduction. Lieutenant General Sunil Srivastava, Director CENJOWS, Lieutenant General Samantara, DG Infantry, Major General Ravi Arora, distinguished fellow at CENJOWS and CEO of IMR, and gives me to deliver the inaugural address at the webinar and expo on night vision and electro-optical devices. As brought out by General Srivastava, this is indeed a very important aspect of warfare that needs greater attention in terms of technical capability, indigenous capacity, and tactical and operational usage. I am therefore glad that such a webinar has been organized with the participation of the users, the technical experts, and the industry representatives. It's always good to start with a little bit of history. So when you look back at the history of night warfare, it does provide us lessons for today and tomorrow. In ancient times, night warfare was very restricted and indeed very often prohibited by tradition. The practice of beating retreat that we observe every year is a legacy of that tradition. However, when you look more closely, epics as far back as the Mahabharata amply bring out the fact that night warfare was very much in use. The night war on the 14th day of Mahabharata amply illustrates this fact. In the fight, those of you who have read it, between Karan and Ghatotkach, Karna was forced to use the celestial weapon that he had kept for Arjuna, which was the key enabler actually in the victory of the Pandavas in the war, because if Karan had that weapon, he could have decimated Arjuna. There are also several narratives of night battles in ancient Rome, the most well-known being the suicide attack by a squad of Spartans on the Persian king Xerxes during the very famous Battle of Thermopylae in 480 BCE. When you read both the narratives, actually, they bring out the fear, shock, and confusion that was generated by night attacks on the opposite forces, and this is exactly the impact that happens of an accurate and well-planned night attack. In modern warfare, when you come to the First World War, illumination rounds and tracers, especially on the Western Front where trench warfare was fought, saw several advances in night warfare capability. That was the first time that it was used in a major war. And during the interwar period, there were several advances. The major one, of course, was a very secret invention of the radar by the Germans, and which came as a shock to the British during the Battle of Britain. And then, of course, they recovered and made their own radar, because the Germans were the first to have a night radar both on the aircraft and on the ground. However, it is only in the Korean War really that night fighting capability was used extensively for the first time by the US forces. That's when they had learned all the lessons, incorporated that quickly into the military industrial complex. And so the 1950s saw a major jump in night fighting capabilities, particularly from the air. In this regard, the American forces used to actually bomb the line of communications of the North Koreans and the Chinese at night as well, in their victory in the war, which many of us really are not aware of. Those parties of all countries. In the case of the US, for example, when I was in acquisition, import of any weapon system with night vision capability invites the end user and indeed sometimes the enhanced end user monitoring agreement so that it is not misused or shared with a third country. Therefore, one thing we need to remember is that this technology is extremely difficult to acquire. It is extremely secretive and is on the prohibitive list of the Western countries and Israel both. Now, as all of you would be well aware, night fighting has been regarded as the most difficult form of combat for obvious reasons. The lack of visibility due to the limitations of the human eye, which is a fascinating study in itself, to see at night. The fact that the human circadian system is designed to reduce alertness and energy levels at night, which reduces the ability to fight at night. The difficulty in coordinating even a tactical action across a small geographical expanse, the necessity of excellent situational awareness and communication, and of course, the ever-present danger of fratricide. However, as described in the Mahabharata, and as I mentioned, it also affords the and sows confusion and fear in the enemy rank and file. Not surprisingly, therefore, well-planned night attacks have resulted in battlefield triumphs, such as the Indian Navy's attack on Karachi as part of Operation Trident in 1971, which spread immense fear and confusion in the Pakistan Navy, after which they were confined to their harbor, while ill-planned actions have resulted in massive failure. And I think the Battle of Longewala in 1971, where the Pakistani night attack resulted in disastrous destruction of their armor, which had mistakenly overshot both their objectives and the infantry in the confusion of darkness, allowed the Indian Army to hold on to them in the night. And then, of course, they were decimated by the Indian Air Force hunters next morning. However, it must also be remembered that it was only after sunrise that the IAF hunters could come to the support of the army units, as they did not have the night fighting capabilities at that time. In the Indian context, therefore, night engagements have not been that numerous, and our night fighting capabilities, to be very frank, particularly for the infantry, have remained much neglected until the commencement of the proxy war in J&K in the late 1980s forced us to rethink our strategies, our tactics and equipment, and brought low-intensity warfare to the forefront. Internationally too, the shock and awe campaign by the US and allied forces in the first Gulf War in 1991, if you recollect, most of the initial bombing and fighting was done by night, forced many countries, especially the Chinese, to pay attention to night fighting capabilities. Therefore, over the last 30 years or so, there has indeed been a close attention to night warfare capabilities by most countries. My own experience of night fighting equipment in the Navy, both its usage and its acquisition, has been mixed. While Russian origin ships always had night fighting night sights on the bridge, as also on several weapon systems, the first time that I extensively used Indian night vision equipment was during Op Pavan in 1988-89. We used to patrol off the east coast of Sri Lanka, always at night, because the LTT was known to operate mostly under the cover of darkness and would smuggle in equipment and people at night. But the ubiquitous night vision monocular, binocular, not really monocular, binocular manufactured by Bell became a mainstay, but it was not very sensitive or user-friendly and was also very limited in range. I also recollect that it had a lot of maintenance problems, and we had many binoculars non-operational at one time, but that was the only thing we had, and we made do with it. All the other ships that I commanded had night vision capabilities in the form of the OVNTS binocular sight, which was good, but again, not very user-friendly because it was not stabilized, and on a moving platform, which like a ship which is also rolling and pitching, it was not that easy to focus it onto an object. So the lack of user-friendly night vision equipment, to my mind, has always been felt by the Navy, particularly when you're operating close to the coast or in anti-piracy operations, and you had to close a small contact, a fishing boat, to close ranges to identify the people, to see what's happening there. And it's very uncomfortable because a suicide craft laden with explosives can cause considerable damage to a warship, which is actually which has to come to a stop and slow down. And this always used to be a pretty tense time to do so. And we always felt that we wished we had better night vision and more clearer night vision operation equipment. It was while I was in command of Virat in 2009 that I first came across a Gen 2 Plus night vision device being used by my ship's principal medical officer, who happened to be an ophthalmologist and was doing research on night vision under an AFMRC project. It just so happened that at night time, sitting on my chair in the deck and in the bridge during night flying, he happened to bring this binocular up. And I was quite amazed to see that it converted the pitch dark aircraft carrier deck into broad daylight. I mean, it was quite amazing. And I realized how far behind we were in technology at that stage. And this is, I'm talking about 2009, almost 13 years ago. During my time in acquisition as the ACNS policy and plans, I also got acquainted with the acquisition problems of night vision devices. In brief, mainly this was for the Army. The acquisition process, we used to be on listening watch, and the process was the monopoly of the DRDO and the DPSUs. And there was always this tussle between the Army and the DPSUs and DRDO as to the amount of pixels that they want, the kind of weight that they want, the kind of performance that they want. And the DRDOs and DPSUs always promise to deliver. But unfortunately, at this time, and I'm talking about 2012, they did not have the requisite technology. They were investing in research and development. And also, the DPSUs did not have the required capacity to supply the large numbers required by the Army. So there was both a problem in brief of the technology and the capacity, the capability and the capacity. This would result in frustrating delays and protracted arguments in the procurement meetings. And finally, it did result in capability gaps in the Army, which they could ill afford. I've always been frank about this because I'm a big supporter of indigenization. But when there is a capability gap and the man on the field has to meet a commitment, then he does require something immediately, which unfortunately could not be delivered that time. Of course, the situation has improved substantially since then, but I don't think it has really come to the situation that we really want. This is really not a very happy state of affairs to my mind because of the ongoing conflicts in various parts of the country. And as I mentioned before, the man on the field has to face the brunt of it, with the Chinese transgressing constantly on the northern borders. The fact that low intensity conflicts across the country have not abated. Night vision equipment is indeed a pressing requirement. In the case of the Navy too, ever since 26/11 happened, and low intensity maritime conflicts have become an integral part of the Indian Navy's strategy and operational philosophy, night vision capabilities have been acutely required, and indeed the Navy has been acquiring them in fits and bursts. The latest close-range guns do have night vision, stabilized night vision capability. And similarly, if you look at, but again, I think it needs to proliferate, particularly to the individual Marine Commando and to the individual QRT team operator in a similar manner as required by the Army. If you look at aviation, the Air Force and the Naval Aviation, as also the Army Aviation, while we have had imported night vision capability on aircraft for many years, the Sea 42 Charlie, for example, the commando version, has had some very good night vision and night operating capability. But more is coming in with the Chinooks and the Apaches and the MRH helicopters for the Navy, which I understand is Gen 3. But the indigenization in this aspect remains a big capability gap. There are problems of both weight and the kind of quality that is required. And therefore, there is a huge need for indigenous development in this field, both from the public and the private sectors, to meet the requirements of our armed forces. Now, Make in India is the right moment for NVDs, and I think this provides an excellent opportunity both to public and the private industry. As we are all aware, night vision devices, apart from military applications, have a huge non-military application. In fact, this is one of the devices that have got massive non-military applications in law enforcement, in wildlife observation, in surveillance, in security, ordinary security of homes, navigation, hidden object detection, in the entertainment industry, in space exploration. This is a huge part of space exploration, in firefighting and rescue, in medicine, etc. There is also a large export market waiting to be tapped in this sector once we develop an indigenous capability. However, as we are aware, this requires the monopoly of DPSUs to be removed. I think the private sector has come a long way in this, as was mentioned by General Srivastava. And we are all aware that competition on a multi-vendor basis is the ideal situation, both for better price and technology discovery. Now, to leapfrog the technology gap, because there will be technology gaps at times when we are getting into this, transfer of technology route is a good option, though obviously not ideal, as it does not always support the absorption of technology or its research and development in the indigenous industry. That is something that we have seen in the past also. However, the fact remains that overseas companies, especially those in Israel and the US are far ahead in technology in this aspect, both in cooled and uncooled sensors. And indeed, they have moved on to Gen 4 equipment, which obviously is extremely classified. But to my mind, unless we collaborate to start with, or on a lighter note, or if we steal technology like the Chinese do, which is obviously is not our ethos, we will remain behind the technology curve. So I think in the short term, and that's what I'll offer in the recommendations in the long term as well. Now, as far as the technology of night vision is concerned, a brief word on that. Night vision devices work on two basic principles: thermal imaging and image enhancement. Now, NVDs, like most technical devices, are categorized by generation. Gen 0 devices were the ones that were in the Korean War in the 1950s, and technology has thereafter progressed to Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 2 plus, Gen 2 plus plus, to Gen 3, which is now available to us also through our latest acquisitions. And now, of course, Gen 4, which I mentioned, which is the latest available today with the Western countries and Israel. Now, most night vision devices use image enhancement technology due to the wide range of their use for different applications, which I mentioned before, such as surveillance, targeting, and navigation. And newer devices are getting much, much better. I just had a look at one of them last year in terms of resolution, sensitivity, their angle of view, and they're also getting lighter and smaller. And indeed, the scopes on rifles today are featherweight. Now, these new developments, as I mentioned, are at the cutting edge of technology, and they do require some amount of collaboration. If we have to jumpstart the indigenous manufacturing process in India, and thereafter take on the process of indigenous development of some of these technologies. There is also the very interesting possibility of bioengineering the human eye to make it night capable. Experiments in this direction have already been successfully conducted, though it remains in the realm of possibilities. But human eyes have been, through bioengineering by application of chemicals, been able to expand their night vision range to almost as close to 50 to 100 meters with absolute clarity. The bottom line remains that night vision technology is a unique mix of both physics and chemistry and even biology. And therefore, it's an area of unique specialist research and development, which needs both the financial and organizational support of the government, as also the innovativeness, dynamism, and human expertise that the private sector and academia possess. So what is the way ahead? I would just like to offer 3 macro recommendations to enable our country, not just our armed forces, but our country, to acquire night vision technology. The first is that we need to activate the well-known collaborative triangle of government, industry, and academia, so that indigenous development of night vision technology can be synergized. This virtuous triangle has the advantage of reducing costs of development, of synergizing brains and resources, and allowing for lateral development of new technologies. Because when you give an idea to a university, they don't just work on your idea, they take it sideways, upwards, downwards, and they come up with many other things. This also has the advantage of the technologies discovered being patented, which is again something that the nation requires. The urgency of this collaboration is underlined by the fact, as I mentioned earlier, of the need for this, the fact that the global market, as brought out by the approach paper prepared by CENJOWS, is going to reach US dollars almost 9 billion by the end of 2027. And therefore, investment in this research and development of night vision devices is going to be extremely profitable and advantageous for us. With the scaling of the NVDs for the Indian Army having been finalized, and there also being a huge requirement for NVDs for the Indian Navy and the Air Force, I think it is time that we firstly activate this collaborative triangle, which has been known to deliver results. I have personally seen the results in my command as well. Now, indigenous development and research should be the long-term aim. But as I mentioned earlier, in the short term, a collaborative model with a foreign partner, either by the DRDO or the DPSUs or private industry, would be the way ahead to acquire Gen 3 night vision devices, so that we can leapfrog the technology gap and at least start manufacturing it here. For this, of course, we need to find the right partner, especially one willing to share some part of the technology, which of course is easier said than done. But this has been done before. So I think in the short term, we really need to collaborate in specific fields and jump through the technology gap that's currently existing. And I think the private sector is pretty nimble in this, particularly when they find that this has got applications in the civil sector as well. Thirdly, I would urge that night fighting should not be looked at in isolation, by which I mean not as a single device, not as a night vision sight for a single gun or a tank or an aircraft or a ship. This is easiest understood in the context of a commando or a land attack helicopter, where night vision is integrated with many other systems in the aircraft, such as the navigation systems, the aircraft controls, the combat system, etc. Therefore, night fighting equipment should also be looked comprehensively as a night fighting system. As brought out by General Srivastava in the beginning, just having the night vision image is not enough. It should be compatible. For example, in the Navy, night vision devices on a helicopter aircraft need to be compatible with the night landing aids and equipment on the ship as well as also on other ships. So there is a large degree of compatibility which these equipment have to have, not just within the platform, but outside the platform for it to operate successfully. Similarly, in the context of the infantry or the armored corps, night vision devices, while being fitted singly on individual helmets or rifles or tanks, need to be integrated with communication, weapon and sensor equipment, not just on one platform or individual, but through networks, which can transmit images and information across the entire combat unit to realize its true potential. Towards this, now it is the responsibility of the individual services and the joint staff to brainstorm and formulate night fighting tactics so that we can provide comprehensive staff requirements to the technology developers. I think this is a big gap because so far we have been, to the best of my knowledge, giving individual staff requirements. This comprehensive staff requirement, even in a team of an infantry team or a SWAT team, that is something that I have not seen. At least I may be corrected if it is already happening. But I think this night fighting as a system is most important if we are to succeed. And this is where actually in the formulation of the system, this is where DRDO can play a major role, because synergizing various equipment together is something which is their forte. So to my mind, the development should be farmed out. We should let 1,000 flowers bloom and allow the technology developers to come up with this, with the freedom to collaborate with various people. The latest equipment that we have is also much more robust. It is much more long-lasting Gen 3 equipment. The tubes have a life of 10,000 hours, and that's indeed a lot, though the initial investment is expensive. So I mentioned a pretty long wish list, but I'm sure this event, which will bring together all stakeholders, including users, some staff involved in the procurement process, maintenance agencies, industry and scientific community, to exchange ideas and information on latest technologies, products and challenges. And I'm sure that they will chart the way ahead, improving our capabilities and bringing us to the point where we can develop indigenous equipment in night fighting. I would like to thank all of you for your attention. I take this occasion to wish the seminar all success and wish you a very safe and COVID-free next few weeks. Please do take care. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, Admiral Chawla. I think you have indeed covered a very wide canvas, and particularly you have peppered it with your incisive knowledge, personal experience, and both the issues at the macro strategic level, particularly the recommendations that you have made for the short term, the requirement to collaborate to leapfrog. I think that absolutely is so true. And how we have to straight away spot on get to the Gen 3 levels. And but the long-term recommendations that you have made, and particularly your thoughts on how night fighting devices have to be night fighting conceptualized as a system. I think that is something that should be the underlying theme of all our discussions over the next 2 days, because that is where sensors, if they're not networked with shooters, it makes no sense. So thank you so much. I think you've indeed given us a lot of thoughts to take forward. Thank you so much. I'll now move on to the next speaker for the event and to deliver the theme address. And none other than the DG Infantry, General A.K. Samantara, Senna Medal and Bar. So he, despite his busy schedule, has agreed to be a part of the event. Thank you so much. Very qualified officer, Staff College, Long Defense Management course, National Defense College he attended, commanded an infantry battalion in counter-insurgency operations in Manipur, and he has served in the UN mission in Angola and commanded an infantry brigade and a multinational UN brigade in Congo. He's also commanded a division in the Northern Command and has been at very critical moments a part of, he was the MGGS of the Northern Command very recently, handling issues in Snow Leopard, as well as a brigadier. He was part of the response to what happened in Doklam. So, and he has also been an instructor at the National Defense Academy, as also at the High Command Wing of the Army War College. So with his vast experience and now as DG Infantry, very closely looking at night fighting systems, we couldn't have asked for a better person. So over to you, General Samantara.
General Srivastava for the kind introduction. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I take this opportunity to express my gratitude to CENJOWS and IMR to connect with all stakeholders to this webinar, Night Vision and Electro-optics India 2022. Gentlemen, in my opinion, this is an important subject which greatly impacts the warfighting concepts and capability of the Indian Army today. I am glad that such an webinar has been organized today. More so because the current security dynamics covers a vast expanse of operational scenarios in the realms of conventional, sub-conventional scenarios, and also hybrid warfare. And these warfighting challenges, clubbed with rapid transformation in technology, have blurred the lines between day and night. In addition, the focus on swiftness, lethality, and non-linearity in conflicts necessitates all-weather and round-the-clock operations. Actually, these battlefield realities compel the frontline troops to remain perpetually alert and be prepared to counter multiple threats in all terrain and all weather conditions. Today, inputs indicate our northern and western adversaries are adequately equipped with new generation smart surveillance and target acquisition devices. As the director mentioned today, even the terrorists are using the best of night fighting devices. So we need to be ahead of all of them. The Indian Army has also, over the years, given substantial impetus to night enablement of its troops and units. Towards this end, the Committee on Night Enablement of Indian Army, formed in 2011, has taken remarkable steps towards induction and indigenization of critical technologies in the domain of target acquisition and surveillance. Although a lot of ground has been covered, still there is some more yet to be covered. Today, the electro-optics equipment profile, especially of sights and surveillance devices, gives a major boost to the operational capability of the Indian Army entity. Infantry, in particular, is being equipped with a variety of night vision devices and comprising of both image intensification and thermal imaging. The night equipment in Indian Army ranges from night sights for small arms to other support weapons and variety of surveillance devices in both the categories of cooled and uncooled versions. Overall, this has resulted in enhanced battlefield transparency, situational awareness leading to increased lethality and survivability. Gentlemen, as you know, the technology in the domain of electro-optics is evolving rapidly. Artificial intelligence has enabled new capabilities and new frontiers. Indian Army, being cognizant to the dynamic changes in the field of night equipment, is preparing itself with modern devices with concurrent investments in futuristic technology and products. In image intensification technologies, the Indian Army is now moving from old gen FOM devices to new gen FOM devices. Our stress in thermal imaging is to induct both cooled and uncooled devices with further reduction in size and better resolution. At the same time, based on contemporary technologies, Indian Army continues to explore various avenues for development and induction of futuristic technologies to remain ahead of the adversary in the modernization curve. The infantry in particular is exploring miniaturization of fire control systems and electro-optics to indigenous vendors. The updates on these projects till date have been promising. And Indian Army has also taken substantial steps to introduce multi-sensor devices, including fusion sights and panoramic goggles with higher gen capability, which will surely give our soldiers a technological edge. And today, developments in artificial intelligence, computing, and networking are further presenting interesting opportunities. Therefore, we are looking towards induction of smart, intelligent, and well-connected devices in future. I would urge the industries and also the academia and R&D agencies to be sensitive to these futuristic requirements, which even the director mentioned in the welcome address. Gentlemen, to give a heads up on the latest in night vision technology in the international front, we have the knowledge of integrated visual augmented reality system being developed by industry. This uses augmented realities to overlay displays on the goggles, and the goggle uses augmented reality to overlay displays into the vision of the user. And as regards traditional image intensification is concerned, the technology has now progressed to higher gen, and we are also graduating in this field. Moreover, today the modern armies are looking at development of night vision technology based on ultra-thin nanocrystal layers, and this is claimed to be of very lightweight with an ability to function at room temperature with extremely clear output images. Notwithstanding the futuristic development, I must appreciate the Indian industries who have made forays into indigenous production of day and night target acquisition devices. Gentlemen, as you are aware that the service headquarters is supporting indigenization of latest technology with full gusto. I am sure this will enable our R&D to develop newer technologies in future. Today, I would therefore implore the Indian industries, developers, and researchers to rise up to the challenges of developing and producing night sight and devices based on newer technology. After all, what is it that an infantry soldier requires? He requires a lightweight, sustainable, and versatile capability which does not degrade his situational awareness and target capability in night conditions. We are also cognizant of the fact that hand-holding and synergistic approach will go a long way in developing niche technologies which would give the Indian Army an operational edge in the battlefront. I would, in the end, quote Admiral Chawla that no fighting, night fighting is the most difficult form of combat, and we need to prepare for it holistically. Thank you, Jai.
Thank you so much, General Samantara, for sharing your views. And I think whatever you have highlighted, it's very heartening, gives a lot of assurance as to how the roadmap has already been finalized, and we are well on our way to realizing the capabilities that we want. And you have very succinctly shared as to what are we looking at: smart intelligence and connected devices. You've spoken of weapon sights, you've spoken of support weapons, and you've also spoken of fire control system, so as to how everything has to be integrated to meet the requirements of the warfighter. And you've also mentioned as to how virtual reality, augmented reality, and all that integration is enabling not just training, but actual application on the platforms. So thank you so much. I think everyone, all our participants today would have taken note of what thoughts you have shared. We're indeed grateful to you. Thank you. Thank you so much. So we now move on to our next speaker for the day. And for this, we have Colonel Kuber, who will be sharing the industry perspective. Colonel Kuber is Director Defense and Aerospace and Ernst & Young, and he is an alumnus of the National Defense Academy, where he later served as an instructor. He super specializes in electronic warfare, having commanded operational assets both in J&K as well as the Northeast. He has played a pivotal role as Director of Capital Acquisitions and was the architect of the offset policy, and also set up the Defense Offset Felicitation Agency way back in 2005. And he has been an advisor to the Ministry of Defense as well as to MSMEs, as also to the DRDO. And he has been also invited by foreign governments and agencies and firms like Embraer, Raytheon, Rafale, Israel, and also the government of Australia on issues related to defense procurements. He formed part of the committee of experts who formulated DPP 2016. And he has, at his individual level, founded the Sughosh Advisory in 2017 and Sughosh Media in 2018. These are e-magazines which put together and have a focus on MSMEs. Over to you, Colonel Kuber, for sharing the industry perspective.
Thank you, sir. My gratitude to CENJOWS for having invited me to speak on this very interesting topic. And General Samantara sir, General Srivastava sir, Admiral Chawla sir, General Arora sir, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's indeed a privilege to share the dais with two illustrious course mates, and I'm very happy to see General Srivastava and Admiral Chawla, and together. I mean, I feel very, very happy today to be a part of this particular seminar. I want to begin with the perspective of the infantry, and since General Samantara is there, and this is one of the most important things, that important technology infusions that we need to make in the infantry. And I want to make a overarching comment before we go there into the depth of the subject, that Atmanirbharta is a great idea. I only wish it doesn't come in the way of the modernization and the capability to the services. So from the perspective of infantry, we have a large number of heavy machine guns, grenade, rocket launchers, and all these are used for precise firing, some of them not very precise firing. We end up shooting a large number of rounds to neutralize the target. However, with the latest equipment such as large field of view red dot sights, auto aiming systems, using ballistic calculators, they are becoming available with the advancement of technology to help the soldier to aim as precisely as possible. So there is an element of economy involved when we induct the night vision devices. We're going to save on a lot of ammunition, and therefore any of the procurement executives who come in the way of procurement purely from a finance angle and say it's too costly, I think they need to bear this in mind. The electro-optic industry has been disrupted in many ways, very big ways, and the bridge between the physical and the virtual worlds are actually blurring. So we are seeing a rise in augmented reality, as the DG Infantry just mentioned to us, and these solutions are being offered to the end users. However, it's very important that these systems give the relevant right moment rather than flooding our soldier with unnecessary information. Actually, we should take a caution towards information overload. This is something that our soldier cannot afford. He's carrying already any amount of weight on him, and this weight cannot produce a weight on his mind. Not only our soldiers need smart optronics, but also our armored fighting vehicles need them. Our aircrafts need them. Our helicopters need them. And with a large number of tanks being used in the Indian Armed Forces, a majority of them need upgradation to include night fighting technologies. I do not know what was the status of the 811 tanks that were upgraded for night enhancement. And are we looking at the reminder 2011? So we are looking at big numbers. And one of the companies which I saw pretty much invested in this particular technology is MKU, which is working with it. Actually, it's investing in technology. When I went and saw these young boys and girls working, and with the team of engineers, and also getting the right technology from the foreign OEMs, I think they are offering a very good solution to the Indian Armed Forces, and so are the other companies. We have Alpha IDL, we've got Tonbo, we've got Tatas, we've got L&T. I think we've got a number of them, and some of these companies are invested in very niche areas and also doing a lot of research. I just want to give you a background of the newsletter, the knowledge paper that we are releasing today. Today we are releasing an interactive knowledge paper, and I want to thank the design team that's working with my team, the EY India Aerospace and Design team. We broadly introduce the topic, get into the classification, provide some market insights, and we talk about the NVD's India's RFI, RFPs, and also some of the opportunities. So we know what's an image, how it converts visible light into near infrared and near infrared to visible light, and how NVDs are used to intensify the human sight. And there are several types over there. IR, II, I mean, these have been talked about. I'm going to just leave it there. Most NVDs consist of optical components such as telescopic lenses, mirrors, and somehow we have not been looking at one company, which is, I think, in Pondicherry. This is called General Optics. They supply, they make one of they make the best optics in the world, and the large OEMs like Elbit and others invested in optics. They buy the optics from him, and they integrate it somewhere else, and it comes back into India. So we should look at these gems. We should try to pull them into the mainstream and utilize the optics that we do here. We know that it has got the thermal images. We've got it's just a thermographic camera, and it could be typically handled, but even a helmet mounted is available, and the construction of such camera, heat and water resistant housing, and contains 5 major components, optic systems, detector, amplifier, signal processing, and display. And I think somewhere later in the talk, I'm going to talk to you about the detector, because the detector technology itself will require something like about 1,000 crores investment, and that is where we need to go if we are looking at Atmanirbhar and if we are looking at providing solutions from within. Laser-based night sights, laser range finder, a device which uses a laser beam. And I think we've got to invest a lot in lasers, because today lasers, when you start investing in lasers, you're also thinking about the optimum solutions for counter UAVs. So night vision devices, lasers, counter UAVs, the technology investment should be so broad, should be so specific that it actually covers multiple devices. These have been classified worldwide by land systems, marine systems, and air for tank surveillance for land systems. These are the advanced thermal imaging and fire control upgrade systems, which serves as a modular concept. It has an advanced high performance TI system, ballistic digital computer, a gunner and commander display. So robust and all that, I'm leaving it there. The maritime platform, the night vision are used in ships for surveillance and assist other activities. It helps navigate in all circumstances, detect other vessels, overboard searches, and to secure a vessel in harbor and at an open water for anti-piracy and things like that. In the air domain for aircraft and UAV surveillance, and today that is assuming a lot of significance, because when you talk of UAVs, you are thinking about the UAVs just as you would think about an infantry soldier, and therefore you need miniature systems. You need them to be smaller. You need them to be lighter. You need them. You do not want to increase the weight of the UAV. So we are talking about EOIR payload for the Mi-17. We talk about the NVS for the aviator night vision imaging system. We talked about the night vision UAV, which is a thermal imager for the UAV, which ranges from about 7 to 40 odd kilometers. And then we have the individual surveillance systems. Just to give you some market insights, the number of military equipment and vehicles have increased significantly. Most countries are now focusing on retrofitting the existing equipment with advanced EOIR systems because of budgetary constraints, rather than procuring new platforms. And usage of unmanned systems is contributing to the increased share of NVDs worldwide. And the global EOIR market is projected with a CAGR of 2.51%, something like a $9.314 billion by 2022. By platform, the air segment holds market with about 54.26%. This was the figure in 2020, and the sea segment is expected to show a higher CAGR 2.67 in the forecast period up to 2026. With rapid developments, the competition is high, new entrants are coming in, transfer of technology is happening, and with a focus on national security, most countries have provisions for several man-portable, manned and unmanned systems in their budgets. Many of these requires NVD's EOIR for patrolling, surveillance, reconnaissance, and search and rescue, and therefore growing military budgets across the globe and R&D in advanced infrared imaging technologies is actually driving this market northwards. Integration of new technologies and existing systems is one of the main design and technical constraints. So if we are able to master this, that is going to help us retain our legacy systems with advanced capabilities. The Indian EOIR market is about $600 million in 2020, and it's projected to reach something like 737 by 2026. I'm talking about 737 US million dollars. We know about IRD. They have got they are invested in this, and I think we need to drive them a little more, because they have already gap measuring devices, EO fire control systems for armored vehicles, naval ships, holographic sights, helmet mounted thermal imaging cameras, multiple. So they are doing an excellent job. I think if we are able to project our requirement in time and are able to tell them as to this is what we are looking at. One of the main constraints with either the design agency or the production agency is they do not get the real numbers as we look at. I mean, I do not know how much of TPCR has actually materialized, and one way to take a audit of the TPCR and find out if it has really satisfied the market with the hope or the hype that it gave. I mean, I do not know what percentage of that would be. So I'm leaving it at that. And then I want to say that there is something which has happened. DRDO has developed a portable dual role EOCM laser system weighing 30 kgs. And I think this is the way to go forward. Army Design Bureau has developed a helmet-mounted AI-powered personalized night vision unit that wants soldiers of unusual activities across regions with a restricted line of sight. Along with the helmet, the companion wristband also vibrates when the unit picks up signs of any movement of soldiers' proximity. We have the DPSUs. We've got the private industry, which is doing extremely well today. They are invested in technology. They know how to absorb technology. They also not only they know how to absorb the technology, they also know how to enhance it. And here is where the traditional methods of transfer of technology for licensed production will go for a 6, and that is where the private industry, which comes in with the capability that it has and the flexibility that it has in making relationships, will be able to give us the best for our armed forces. In July 2018, Rafael commissioned a 10 million facility in Hyderabad with a wide range of advanced capabilities. In 2019, Conthrop Precision Technologies partnered with Bell. The US administration approved the sale of the IADWS, the Integrated Air Defense Weapon Systems, in 2020. The entire deal is about $1.7 billion. And a part of the deal where the M4A1 rifles, the cartridges, EOIR systems, and handheld remote terminals. I think this is one of the ways that we can get, because US closely guards the technology that they have. And when the Admiral was speaking to us today, earlier, about Gen 4 technology, because we talked about a figure of merit of 1600 and 1800 and all that. I think they have gone past that. I think some of our Indian companies are around 2020, and I think US has gone somewhere past that, because a figure of merit gives a more broader picture of how the technology is actually developing. The indigenous upgrade of 811 license-built BMP-2s. I mean, I was talking to you about. I do not know what has progressed over there. Then there was a project sanction order to procure 12 domestic for 12 domestic and private sector companies, which are also referred as the DAs, developed to produce retrofitted prototype within 52 weeks. The BMP-2 upgrade will be processed under IDDM after this, as per in accord KP 2020, and it'll include also powerful engines and other things in the next phase. In 21 December, the DPB, the Procurement Board, cleared a purchase of 29760 image intensifiers worth 1410 crores, and with the 6 sawyers, for the 6 sawyers. So I think a lot is happening from the procurement side. Today, we are looking at the night sight for carbines, about $542 million market range. A night sight for rifle, around $812 million. Night sight for rifle II is about $650 million. For LMG TI, about $339 million. For MGL is about $87 million. Night sight for MMG TI is about $105 million. For 84mm RL is $228 million. II is about 3.6. And in accordance with the TPCR, night vision sights for tanks about 4,000 we are looking at. Night vision sights for ICV is 2,000. Helmet mounted NVB is about in hundreds. Next generation NVD is in hundreds. TI sights about 55,000 and II sights 180. So we have a number of RFIs which are active. The procurement of night vision binoculars from the Navy, supply of advanced night vision device for INSAS from the Army, thermal imaging systems from DRDO, monocular helmet mounted sight from the Northern Command, procurement of driver night sight from CVRD, the advanced night vision INSAS LMG from Northern Command, case carryings for the Army for the rifles, supply of day sight and tower sight rifle mount from the Army, and bids. So we are already looking at 600-700 crores which are just lined up. In addition to that, some of the supply of digital NV goggles and high-speed IR cameras and monocular helmet-mounted night sight. So the requirement is there. The technology, we are almost there with private industries actually stepping in. It's a great boon to this to our country that our forces could be sustained from within. But let us also keep in mind that the capability to the armed forces comes first, and whatever be the status of the development within the country and our spirit for Atmanirbharta, let us take care of the soldier who's in the front and equip him with the best from wherever it is. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Colonel Kuber. Once again, you have covered a very vast canvas. You gave us a good insight into where the Indian industry is today, but also the global perspective as to what are the standards and norms where the world is headed. And I think of particular interest to everyone will be some of the things that you mentioned in the closing part of your address, as to category wise, as to what are the kind of things that we are looking at where RFIs have already been issued. I'm not talking about just the huge amount of sums that you have mentioned, but the fact of the matter is that yes, over the next several years, I think we are looking at capability enhancement in night fighting in a big way, which is very much required. As Admiral Chawla had also mentioned, that all the three services need to upgrade themselves, upskill and upgrade both. Thank you so much. I think we have had a very informative inaugural session, which has set the stage now for the detailed deliberations in each of these areas to follow. Once again, I would like to thank Admiral Chawla, General Samantara, Colonel Kuber for helping us put this together. I think General Ravi Arora, sir, you would be showing some glimpses of the paper that the Ernst & Young have put together.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. I will just share my screen. Ladies and gentlemen, Ernst & Young have produced a knowledge paper on night vision and electro-optics, India 2022. And this is the cover of this paper. It is 24 pages, and I will give you a glimpse of what it contains. This knowledge paper will be sent to all delegates who are attending, who have provided their email addresses. After the event is over, it will be mailed to you. May I request you also to please provide feedback when you leave this event, feedback on the webinar. That feedback form will pop up as a page when you leave any of the sessions. This paper contains classification of night vision devices, market insights, NVDs in India, and details of some of the recent RFIs and RFPs. So it has an introduction. The second section has classification of night vision devices, market insights, NVDs in India, and RFIs and RFPs. Sir, I finished.